The auditorium smelled of polished wood and new beginnings. Rows of proud parents sat dressed in fine suits, whispering, snapping photos, smiling. But one man sat perfectly still. His uniform, deep navy blue with polished metals gleaming, stood out against the sea of silk and linen. Marcus Steele, a black Marine with 25 years of service, sat in the back row clutching a ticket with his son's name on it. The paper had been folded and unfolded a dozen times. Written in messy ink were 7 words that made his chest tighten every time he read them. "Dad, I wouldn't be here without you." Marcus arrived an hour early. He always did. Punctuality wasn't just habit, it was respect. He had pressed his uniform himself that morning, his hands trembling slightly as he aligned the creases. It wasn't ceremony, it was pride. His only suit was his service blues, and today he was wearing them for his son. As the hall filled, Marcus noticed a few glances, some admiring, some questioning. He'd learned to recognize both. One woman leaned toward her husband and whispered, "Do you think he's part of the security team?" The man shrugged, not meeting Marcus's eyes. He sat straighter. It didn't matter. Today wasn't about them. It was about Aaron, his son, the boy he'd raised alone while serving 2 tours overseas. The boy who used to fall asleep waiting for his dad to come home from base. The boy who promised, "One day, I'll make you proud, Dad." The ceremony music started. Students in robes began filing in. Marcus scanned every face until he saw him. Tall, confident, wearing his cap just slightly crooked like he always did. Aaron looked up and their eyes met. Marcus smiled, that small, proud smile only a father could give. Then it happened. 2 men in dark suits approached. Security guards. One carried a clipboard, the other a tight, practiced smirk. "Sir," the first said, glancing at Marcus's uniform, "this section's for family members only." Marcus blinked. "I know, I'm his father." He held up his ticket. "Aaron Steele. You'll find my name there." The second guard frowned. "We'll have to recheck the list. Please step outside until we confirm." Marcus hesitated. People were watching. He could feel it. The shift, the stares. His chest tightened. "I've done nothing wrong," he said quietly. "Sir," the man repeated, voice firmer now, "please, step outside." Marcus looked back toward the stage. His son's seat was still empty. He rose slowly, keeping his dignity, and walked towards the exit. Every metal on his chest caught the light as he passed. The murmurs followed him. Outside in the hallway, silence. Just the echo of boots on tile. Marcus stood alone, gripping that ticket like it was a lifeline. He whispered to himself, "I fought wars for this country, and I can't even sit and watch my son graduate." But what Marcus didn't know was that 6 men inside that hall were about to change everything. Stay with this story, because what happens next will make every injustice worth standing against. Marcus stood near the hallway exit, the distant sound of the graduation band echoing through the walls. His heart pounded slow and heavy, not from fear, but from something deeper, a familiar ache he had felt too many times before, the quiet sting of being treated like he didn't belong. The taller guard returned, clipboard in hand, wearing that smug, practiced politeness that always came before disrespect. "Sir," he said, glancing down at the paper instead of at Marcus, "we checked the verified list. There's no record of a Marcus Steele. You'll have to leave the premises." Marcus drew a slow breath, jaw tight. "I have my ticket. My son invited me. He's graduating today. Aaron Steele." The guard shifted his weight. "Sir, I don't want to make this difficult. Please don't cause a scene. Cause a scene." The words hit like shrapnel. The Marine in him wanted to bark back, to remind this boy what respect really looked like. But the father in him stayed quiet, because somewhere inside he knew that his son was about to walk across that stage, maybe looking for him in the crowd. "I've served this country for 25 years, Marcus said softly. "I've been shot at, buried friends, and saluted flags at half-mast. I think I can handle sitting through a graduation." The guard sighed impatiently. "That's not the point, sir. You're not listed as family." Marcus's voice cracked for the first time. "I am his family." For a moment neither spoke. The hum of the auditorium faded, replaced by the distant roll call of names echoing through the walls. Somewhere in that room, his son was smiling, waiting for a proud face that wasn't there. The second guard, younger, nervous, reached for Marcus's elbow. "Sir, please don't make this harder." Marcus froze. That touch, that push, was one too many. He stepped back, eyes narrowing. "Don't. Put your hand on me again." The guard hesitated but didn't move away. "Sir, we're just doing our job." Marcus's voice dropped low, steady, powerful, the kind that came from giving orders on a battlefield. "Then do it with respect." The guard's hand twitched toward his belt. The moment stretched thin. Inside, in the rows of graduates, Aaron was growing uneasy. He'd been searching for that unmistakable marine blue uniform since the ceremony began. It was gone. He pulled out his phone under the table, thumb typing fast. "Dad, where are you?" No response. Next to him, Liam Cruz, his best friend, a newly minted Navy SEAL, noticed the tension. He glanced down at the screen, then followed Aaron's gaze to the empty seat in the back row. Something didn't feel right. "Where's your old man?" Liam whispered. Aaron swallowed hard. "He was right there." Liam's expression hardened instantly. That switch Marines and SEALs all shared when things didn't add up. He turned to the other 5 SEAL graduates in their row and murmured, "We've got a situation." Without hesitation, 6 young men rose in unison. The crowd barely noticed, but the guards were about to, because what started as humiliation was about to turn into history. Stay with me. This will show what happens when loyalty, brotherhood, and honor stand against injustice. The crowd inside the auditorium focused on the stage, unaware of the quiet storm forming near the back. 6 Navy SEAL graduates, all wearing crisp white uniforms, moved with silent precision through the aisle. Their faces were calm, but their eyes were locked in the same direction. Liam Cruz led them. The youngest, Jenkins, followed close behind, his jaw tight. "You sure it's him?" he whispered. Liam nodded once. "That's Sergeant Major Marcus Steele, Aaron's father. Decorated Marine, Navy Cross, Silver Star. The real deal." They reached the rear doors just as Marcus stood in the hallway, trying one last time to reason with the guards. "I told you," Marcus said firmly. "My son is graduating today. I have every right to be here." The older guard crossed his arms. "And I told you, you're not on the list. Don't make us call the police." The moment the words, "call the police," left his mouth, the doors behind him swung open. The 6 SEALs stepped in. Every eye in the hallway shifted. "Excuse me," Liam said, voice steady but edged with command. "Did I just hear you threaten to call the police?" "On him?" He pointed toward Marcus. The guards froze. Their eyes flicked from Liam's crisp white uniform to the gold trident pinned on his chest, the unmistakable insignia of a Navy SEAL. "Sir, this is a private graduation," the older guard stammered. "We're just following—" "Following what?" interrupted Jenkins. "Because the man you're harassing fought for this country longer than you've been alive." Marcus blinked, momentarily speechless. These were his son's friends, his brothers in arms. Liam took a step closer, his voice low but sharp. "That man is Sergeant Major Marcus Steele. 3 combat tours, 25 years of service, Navy Cross recipient. You think you're qualified to verify him?" The guards exchanged a look, realizing just how badly they'd misjudged. "Sir," Liam continued, turning to Marcus with full respect, "on behalf of the United States Navy, we'd be honored to escort you back to your seat." Marcus hesitated. For a second, his throat tightened and the words wouldn't come. Then, quietly, "Thank you, son." Liam nodded. "Always, sir." The SEALs closed ranks around him, 3 in front, 3 behind, forming a silent honor guard. Together, they moved toward the doors leading back into the auditorium. The same parents who had whispered earlier now turned, eyes wide as the group entered. The graduates on stage froze mid-sentence. The dean's voice faltered. Cameras began to lift. The sight was unforgettable. A proud black Marine walking back down the center aisle, flanked by 6 Navy SEALs in full-dress whites, their steps perfectly synchronized. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Who is he? What's happening? And at the very front, Aaron Steele saw it all. His jaw dropped, his heart swelling with something beyond pride, something closer to reverence. The man they tried to humiliate had just been escorted back into the room like a hero, but no one knew. Yet, the best part was still to come. The entire auditorium had gone still. You could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner, the soft rustle of robes, the uneven breaths of hundreds of people realizing they were witnessing something extraordinary. Marcus Steele, the man moments ago told to leave, now walked through the center aisle flanked by 6 Navy SEALs. Every medal on his chest caught the light like fire. His posture was perfect, his gaze straight ahead, calm but unshakable, parents whispered. Some lowered their phones, realizing this wasn't a moment to record, it was one to remember. As Marcus reached the front row, Liam gestured politely to a seat near the center. "Sir," he said quietly, "this one's yours." Marcus hesitated just long enough to catch the trembling lip of the guard still standing near the door. He gave a short nod, not of thanks but of grace. Then he sat down. The SEALs took position, 3 on each side, hands behind their backs, shoulders squared. The dean on stage cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses nervously before continuing. "Ladies and gentlemen, as I was saying, we're honored today to celebrate the achievements of the graduating class." The next name echoed through the hall. Aaron Steele. A murmur swept through the audience. Heads turned. The boy everyone knew as the top engineering student, the quiet achiever, stood up from his seat. But instead of walking straight to the stage, he turned toward the front row, his eyes locked on his father's. Marcus rose slowly, heart pounding. Every moment of sacrifice, the lonely nights, the missed birthdays, the endless deployments, flashed before him. Aaron took one step forward and raised his hand in salute. The hall fell silent. "Permission to graduate. Sergeant Major," he said, his voice steady, carrying across every row. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Then Marcus's eyes glistened. He stood taller, his voice deep, steady, proud. "Permission granted, son." The response wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was filled with power, respect, and generations of service behind it. The crowd erupted. Cheers roared through the auditorium. People stood, clapping, shouting, crying. The dean froze mid-step, overwhelmed. Even the same guards who'd escorted Marcus out now looked down in shame. Aaron walked to the stage through the echo of applause that seemed to shake the walls. He received his diploma, but when he turned back, it wasn't the paper he held up. It was his hand, pointing to the man who'd made it all possible. The announcer's voice cracked as he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Major Marcus Steele, father of our valedictorian, please stand." The Marine rose, every medal shining like proof of dignity reclaimed, and in that moment, no one saw a uniform. They saw a father, a man who had fought for his country abroad, and just won a battle for respect at home. The standing ovation still thundered through the auditorium as Marcus slowly sat back down, his chest rising and falling with pride and disbelief. He wasn't used to this kind of attention. For most of his life, recognition came with folded flags and silent handshakes, not applause. But now, in this packed hall of graduates, parents, and officials, he wasn't just a name on a uniform. He was a symbol. The dean cleared his throat and leaned toward the microphone. "Before we continue," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I'd like to acknowledge someone very special among us today. Sergeant Major Marcus Steele. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and your example." The crowd erupted again. Cameras flashed. Some parents even wiped tears. But not everyone could clap. At the far back of the room, the 2 security guards stood frozen, the clipboard one pale as paper, the other chewing his lip nervously. They'd realized their mistake the moment the SEALs escorted Marcus back in. Now, watching the crowd cheer for the very man they'd tried to humiliate, they wished they could vanish. When the ceremony ended, Marcus tried to slip away quietly. He wasn't there for a spotlight. He only wanted to hug his son, but fate had other plans. "Sergeant Major Steele." The voice came from behind him, the same guard who had told him to leave. His tone was different now, softer, uncertain. Marcus stopped but didn't turn around. "Yes?" The guard swallowed hard. "Sir, I wanted to apologize. I didn't know who you were." Marcus turned, his face calm but unreadable. "And if I wasn't?" The guard blinked. "Sir, Marcus took a slow step closer. If I wasn't a Marine, if I didn't have medals or a title, would you still have treated me that way? The silence that followed was heavier than any lecture. The younger guard shifted awkwardly. We were just following protocol. Marcus's eyes didn't soften. No, son. You were following bias, and there's a difference. Liam and the SEALs watched quietly from a few feet away, saying nothing. The respect in their eyes was clear. This wasn't about anger. It was about dignity. Finally, Marcus sighed. You've learned your lesson today. Make sure you remember it. He turned to leave, but the older guard called after him again. Sir, thank you for your service and for not making this worse. Marcus paused and looked over his shoulder. Son, I didn't make it worse. You did. I just made it right. Then he walked toward the main exit, his steps slow and certain, the crowd parting like waves. Outside, Aaron waited, diploma in hand. When their eyes met, everything else, the embarrassment, the anger, the stares, disappeared. Aaron stepped forward, his voice trembling. Dad, I'm sorry that happened. Marcus smiled faintly. Don't be sorry, son. Be proud. You stood tall today, and so did your brothers. Behind them, the 6 SEALs stood at attention, silent guardians of the moment. The standing ovation still thundered through the auditorium as Marcus slowly sat back down, his chest rising and falling with pride and disbelief. He wasn't used to this kind of attention. For most of his life, recognition came with folded flags and silent handshakes, not applause. But now, in this packed hall of graduates, parents, and officials, he wasn't just a name on a uniform. He was a symbol. The dean cleared his throat and leaned toward the microphone. Before we continue, he said, his voice trembling slightly, I'd like to acknowledge someone very special among us today. Sergeant Major Marcus Steele. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and your example. The crowd erupted again. Cameras flashed. Some parents even wiped tears. But not everyone could clap. At the far back of the room, the 2 security guards stood frozen, the clipboard one pale as paper, the other chewing his lip nervously. They'd realized their mistake the moment the SEALs escorted Marcus back in. Now, watching the crowd cheer for the very man they'd tried to humiliate, they wished they could vanish. When the ceremony ended, Marcus tried to slip away quietly. He wasn't there for a spotlight. He only wanted to hug his son, but fate had other plans. Sergeant Major Steele. The voice came from behind him, the same guard who had told him to leave. His tone was different now, softer, uncertain. Marcus stopped but didn't turn around. Yes? The guard swallowed hard. Sir, I wanted to apologize. I didn't know who you were. Marcus turned, his face calm but unreadable. And if I wasn't? The guard blinked. Sir. Marcus took a slow step closer. If I wasn't a Marine, if I didn't have medals or a title, would you still have treated me that way? The silence that followed was heavier than any lecture. The younger guard shifted awkwardly. We were just following protocol. Marcus's eyes didn't soften. No, son. You were following bias, and there's a difference. Liam and the SEALs watched quietly from a few feet away, saying nothing. The respect in their eyes was clear. This wasn't about anger. It was about dignity. Finally, Marcus sighed. You've learned your lesson today. Make sure you remember it. He turned to leave, but the older guard called after him again. Sir, thank you for your service and for not making this worse. Marcus paused and looked over his shoulder. Son, I didn't make it worse. You did. I just made it right. Then he walked toward the main exit, his steps slow and certain, the crowd parting like waves. Outside, Aaron waited, diploma in hand. When their eyes met, everything else, the embarrassment, the anger, the stares, disappeared. Aaron stepped forward, his voice trembling. Dad, I'm sorry that happened. Marcus smiled faintly. Don't be sorry, son. Be proud. You stood tall today, and so did your brothers. Behind them, the 6 SEALs stood at attention, silent guardians of the moment. By the next morning, the story of Sergeant Major Marcus Steele was everywhere. Cable news anchors replayed the graduation video on loop. Talk shows debated it. The clip of Aaron saluting his father had reached over 40 million views in less than 24 hours. Commentators called it the most powerful moment of quiet patriotism America has seen in years. Marcus woke up to hundreds of unread messages. Reporters, veterans organizations, even old brothers-in-arms he hadn't spoken to in decades. Aaron was in the kitchen scrolling his phone when he froze. "Dad," he whispered, eyes wide. "You're trending #1 on every platform." Marcus chuckled, sipping his coffee. "Son, I've been shot at in 3 countries. Going viral doesn't scare me." But then the phone on the counter rang. Not his cell, but the old landline, the one that hadn't rung in months. Marcus frowned, picked it up. "Sergeant Major Steele speaking." A deep, composed voice replied, "This is Major General Thomas Keegan, United States Marine Corps, Pentagon Liaison Office. Sergeant Major, the Secretary of Defense would like a word." Marcus straightened instinctively, every muscle in his body remembering decades of discipline. "Sir, yes, sir." There was a pause, then a new voice came on, smoother, commanding. "Sergeant Major Steele," said the secretary, "I just watched the video. The country saw what honor looks like yesterday." Marcus swallowed. "Thank you, sir. I didn't do anything special. I just showed up for my son." "That's exactly what made it special," the secretary replied. "We'd like to invite you and your son to Washington next week. The president wants to personally thank you for your service and your example." Aaron, overhearing, nearly dropped his phone. "Dad, did he just say the president?" Marcus just smiled faintly. Yes, he did. By that afternoon, news outlets announced it officially. Sergeant Major Marcus Steele and son invited to White House ceremony. The story had become bigger than just one family. It was now about every veteran who had been disrespected, every parent who had been overlooked, every act of quiet strength that had gone unseen. Liam and the SEALs texted a group message. "Sir, Washington's calling because you reminded them what a real Marine looks like." A week later, father and son walked up the steps of the White House. Cameras flashed again, but this time, it wasn't about proving worth, it was about celebrating it. Inside the East Room, the president himself approached, shaking Marcus's hand firmly. "Sergeant Major Steele," he said, smiling, "your dignity turned a small injustice into a national lesson. You didn't demand respect. You earned it for every man and woman who's ever worn the uniform." Marcus replied softly, "Sir, I just wanted to watch my boy graduate." The president smiled. "And you ended up graduating the nation in respect." Months later, life had returned to a quiet rhythm, or so Marcus thought. But every few weeks a letter arrived. Some from veterans, some from single parents, some from students who wrote things like, "You made me proud to wear this skin. You reminded me that silence can be strength. You taught me to stand tall even when no one's watching." The graduation moment had become more than a viral story. It had sparked a movement. Schools began holding Honor Your Hero ceremonies. Police academies used the video as a case study on respect. And every year since, the university now reserved one empty seat at every graduation, labeled for those who served. On one bright morning, Marcus stood with Aaron again, this time not in the crowd, but on stage. Aaron, now a Navy officer himself, turned to the audience and said, "Everything I am today started with the man who refused to be invisible." The crowd rose in applause as Marcus stood, hand over heart, his uniform glinting in the light. No speeches, no cameras, just a father, a son, and a nation that finally understood what honor truly meant. As they left the stage, Marcus looked at Aaron and said quietly, "Son, remember, you don't have to shout to make a point. Sometimes just standing your ground says it all." Aaron nodded. "Yes, sir." And as the camera panned out, those simple words appeared on screen. Respect is earned. Dignity is unbreakable. Family is forever. If this story of justice, pride, and unshakable honor touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Because stories like these remind us that true heroes walk among us every day.